Example 1, solve 4x squared minus 9 equals 0 by factoring. I want you to notice this is a quadratic function. Okay, it's got x to the second power, which means we can expect possibly two answers to happen. Also, I noticed that there's no x to the first power term on it, which is important. Alright? That makes it, if factorable, a difference of squares issue. Alright, so if we consider a difference of squares, that's anything squared minus anything squared. If you have a difference of squares, the factored form of a difference of squares is square root of the sums, or sum of the square roots and the difference of the square roots. Speak proper English here. The sum of the square roots, the difference of the square roots. So if we have perfect squares, which we do in this case, and they're being subtracted, factoring is just a matter of taking the square root of each object individually and then putting a sum and a difference together. So if I take this binomial expression, 4x squared minus 9, again, no x to the first power in there. That's the key. Perfect square being subtracted by perfect square. It has to be minus. This says minus, doesn't say anything about plus. All right, if you get that situation, the square root of 4x squared is 2x. 4x squared is in front, so 2x and 2x are both in front. The square root of 9 is 3, so 3 goes in back just like 9 is in the back. We do a sum and a difference. And if you're unsure which one goes where, know that the 9 is negative, right? Positive and negative 3 make a negative 9. 4x squared is positive, 2x and 2x make a positive 4x squared. So the correct sign shows up, equals 0. So that's step 1. If we're going to solve by factoring, we factor by the difference of squares. Then, we're back in the same place we've been in before. We've got a quadratic equation. We got it in factored form. Factored form equals 0, so either factor 1 or factor 2 equals 0. If 2x plus 3 equals 0, we can solve that to get out what x equals. If 2x minus 3 equals 0, we can solve that to get what x equals. So if we do the red one first, move the 3 to the other side, that gets me 2x equals negative 3. We divide both sides by 2, that gets me x equals negative 3 halves. If I solve the black one, move the negative 3 over, becomes positive 3. And if 2x is equal to positive 3, we divide by 2. That gets me x equals 3 halves. So my answers are x equals negative 3 halves and positive 3 halves. All right. An alternative technique you might like better than factoring. Okay. That will work if it's factorable. Okay. The ones you'll get in this section will be factorable, so it'll work. All right. That works every time for right now. The other technique looks like this. 4x squared minus 9 equals 0. Now let me just caution you about this. This is sort of, we'll call it a shortcut for lack of a better name. It's a shortcut. All right. The requirement, anytime you get a shortcut, there's usually stipulations. It has to look like this. This has to be true, whatever, to be able to use it. Okay, here's how the shortcut works. If you have a quadratic equation that's missing a linear term. Okay, quadratic means x squared is in it. Missing a linear term meaning the x is not in it. X the first. All right? So we have a quadratic term and a constant. If you have that set up, equals 0, this works. Step 1, solve for x squared. All we have to do is move the 9 over, right? Then we divide by 4. Once you solve for x squared, step 2 is to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 9 fourths is 3 halves, right? If you do this, though, if x squared equals a positive number, you're required to put a plus or minus in front of the answer. X squared equals a positive number, you have to get two answers. This, obviously, get two answers, no thought necessary. This one, you have to remember to put that plus minus. If you don't, you miss half the answer. So you're taking some risks doing the shortcut method. But keep in mind that it works, gets you the same answers. Solve for x squared first, then take the square root, but you have to put the plus or minus. Plus or minus is required. All right?